A note to our dear listeners. This episode was recorded before the COVID-19 pandemic changed, well, everything. We're sharing it today in the hopes that it offers a little break to the endless news cycle and adds some levity to a time when it's really easy to feel overwhelmed. Please, please stay safe, stay home, and stay well. The FBGs love you.
Hi, this is FBG Jen.
And FBG Kristen.
And I'm FBG Margot, host and producer. You're listening to the podcast that will help you keep a lid on the junk in the trunk and inspire you to live a happy and confident life.
Each episode, we chat with motivational experts and celebs and share our own candid adventures in being healthy.
If you're looking for a podcast that's equal parts hilarious and enlightening, well then welcome to the Fit Bottomed Girls podcast.
Welcome back to the Fit Bottomed Girls podcast. This is FBG Margot, and on the line today we have FBG Jen.
Hey, hey.
And we have FBG Kristen.
Hello.
Hi.
And I have a special guest with me today. Gracie, the tiny little dog on my lap. So if you hear a little, it's my neighbor's dog that I'm watching. So if you hear a little jingle here or there, that's just Gracie saying hello.
Hello, Gracie.
We're hoping she takes a nap again.
With the biggest, sweetest ears.
They are huge.
Our interview today is with Dr. Michael Roizen, and he wrote a book called What to Eat When. Kristen and I were on this call, and it's one of my favorite interviews because I just love the ones where they just give us a ton of great information and tips and science, and you leave going, ooh, I need to try this today, tomorrow. I need to put this into action. And Kristen, you and I were just talking off the air how much we enjoyed this interview. Can you talk a little bit about it right now?
For sure. And I agree. Like, I love the ones where I specifically remember having had the interview and then going and talking to like non-FBG friends about it, because I was just like, wait, you guys have to know all of this. So yeah, he basically, the big takeaway from this is that he says that we should eat the majority of our calories, like 75%, before 2 p.m., which, you know, when we say it that way, I think sounds kind of like extreme and like, oh, wow, that's not really what FBG is about, right? But the thing is if you look at other parts of the world and the way that people eat in different countries, that's not unusual. You know, it's not unusual for people to have like the big midday meal. And we all know that, that having a substantial breakfast can be a really great way to kick off your day and get your metabolism going and help you feel good and have energy and all of that. So, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't necessarily like, I mean, the focus wasn't weight loss, but it was, we were talking about like having your body kind of get to it where it wants to be, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're, whether you're maintaining or, whatever, it's really a pretty simple way. It's not like, oh, you need to eat less or whatever. You just need to look at when you're eating. So yeah, and one of the really interesting things that we were talking about off the air here is he talks about having very distinctly non-breakfasty foods for breakfast, which Margot and Jen, it sounds like you guys are pretty familiar with that practice.
I was saying to you guys this morning, because I was taking some Aleve for a little bit of pain I have in my ankle, and I had to eat something, and I remember, I have some leftover steak and some squash, so I heated it up really quick, and it was crazy delicious with my coffee. I don't know, that's normal to me now.
That is an interesting pairing. I mean, I think most people have done like cold pizza though, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
for sure, yes.
Yeah, I mean that's like an easy no-brainer. But yeah, I know one of my friend's sisters. She would actually get up and like make a salad.
Ooh, no.
Which I'm like, that's just a lot of work for me in the morning.
Yeah,
it's a lot of chopping of vegetables. But yeah, any sort of leftovers like tacos, all fair game.
I'm totally into
All
that.
Sounds good.
And we also we talk about this before, but like our big ass salads, are big ass salads. There's a lot going on in there, and that's a midday meal. And I was just thinking, my sister lived in Spain for a couple of years, and she said she loved the fact that like they ate these big lunches, and then she said she'd have something like scrambled eggs or something for dinner, and it felt totally normal and fine, and your body just wanted to digest it that way.
Yeah,
I do think the cultural like portion of it is really, really interesting. Like we are conditioned to kind of eat these 3 square meals or maybe 5 small meals, like whatever it is, but that's how, our work days are set up, our school days are set up. But if you don't exist in that cultural, construct, it's just fascinating. Like, well, maybe there are a bunch of different ways that we could eat. I mean, I know that like when I was a kid, and I can see it with my daughter, when she comes home from preschool at like 2:15, 2:30, she's starving. She's like a little ravenous beast, So I usually give her like a huge snack, or almost like a first dinner, and then she might have like a second dinner that is smaller. So actually, maybe she's in on this information.
Yeah.
Intuitively.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, I think it's, there's something about making a point to do this stuff, but there's also something to be said for like releasing all expectations and really listening to what your body is telling you. And like when you are hungry, and we have this handy hunger fullness chart on our site on fitbottomedgirls.com that you can refer to, that kind of helps you tune into that. But if you're paying attention, like when are you eating and how much, and what do you want to? Because like for me, if I'm really paying close attention and I don't have anything getting in the way of eating what I want to eat when, I'm pretty much on like the circadian rhythm. So I'm like eating during daylight hours. I don't generally need to eat like late at night, unless there's like ice cream in the house that I just feel compelled to have a little bit of. But, I just think that's interesting. And it could be kind of if that's something that you've never done, if you've always just gone by like, oh, well, this is, I'm supposed to have breakfast now, and this is when we have lunch, try some weekend when you don't have something else keeping you from doing it, or, on a work day when you don't have to adhere to a specific lunch hour, just listen. Like, are you hungry at 10:30? Should you have something more than like some almonds, and just take note of it, see how it feels, and then see how it makes you feel the rest of the day. And I don't know, I think it's interesting. And I don't know, I hope that you guys are as into this interview as I am, because I really, like, I think that this was one that I finished and I had a run that night, and I was telling like all the people I was running with all about it. And then did I stick to it all? Not so much, but it was fascinating.
Well, you're going to listen to it again right away.
Yeah.
And you're going to be inspired. And there's so much great information here. So we hope you enjoy it. And we also hope if you enjoy us, feel free to leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. If you leave a 5-star review, we'll read it on the air. If you would like some stickers, we do have stickers. Just send us an email, podcast@fitbottomedgirls.com, and we'll send them out to you. We're on all social media at Fit Bottom Girls. That's for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. You guys, I think that's everything. Here's our interview today with Dr. Michael Roizen. What to eat when. Dr. Michael Roizen is the Chief Wellness Officer at the Cleveland Clinic, Chief Medical Consultant on The Dr. Oz Show, author of 4 #1 New York Times best-selling books, and originator of the popular RealAge.com website. He is board certified in anesthesiology and internal medicine. He's been recognized with an Ellie, an Emmy, and the Paul G. Rogers Award from the National Library of Medicine for Best Medical Communicator. He has also chaired FDA Advisory Committee and has published more than 185 peer-reviewed articles. He is here today to talk about his book, What to Eat When. Welcome to the show, Dr. Roizen.
It's good to be here.
This is the FBG Margot on the line today. We have Kristen. Kristen, say hey.
Hey, guys.
I'm going to ask you the first question, and we're just going to get right into it. Why do you think we all need to rethink when we eat?
Well, the data have been accumulating that a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie. And in order to use essentially hacking your metabolism to maximize your health and your weight loss, the when is very important. So calories eaten in the morning are like 0.9 calories. Calories eaten in the evening, 1.1 calories, a big difference. And that makes a big difference in your health, your energy, how you sleep, and yes, even your weight.
Wow. So I know that, obviously,
morning is when it sounds like we want to have our, our most substantial foods. And I'm just wondering if you could share a few real life scenarios that would help us put the idea of really focusing on when we eat into action.
Well, I think the easiest thing is to have dinner for breakfast. So don't stereotype food and eat only when the sun is out. So my typical breakfast is at 10 a.m. and is some salmon burgers and maybe broccoli or spinach. And then my typical lunch is almost the normal way you eat lunch. And then a dinner is just salad and maybe a glass of wine and a little couple chocolate discs. But the point is you want 75% of your calories before 2 p.m. And that data has accumulated over the last 7 to 10 years in animals very strongly. But now in the last 3 years in humans, we don't report anything and don't write anything until we have at least 4 studies in humans. And so there now are 5 studies in humans that show that eating before 2 p.m., essentially 75% of your calories before 2 p.m., is a way to really maximize your weight loss and health. And my favorite study of all is a study from Spain where midday meal is the biggest meal, and they ate most of their calories either before 2 p.m. in one group, and another group they had in the study eat after 3 p.m. Same number of calories. The group that ate before 2 p.m. had a 25% greater weight loss. 25% is a big number, so 25% greater weight loss. And the key is, again, the key for health is pretty simple. You avoid 4 types of food: simple sugars, added syrups, simple carbohydrates, and foods with saturated fat. And it's not because they have saturated fat, it's because with the saturated fat comes, for example, with red and processed meat, the carnitine, and with egg yolks and cheese, lecithin and choline, and those change the way your bacteria is, the kinds of bacteria you have inside you, and that changes inflammation dramatically. So the foods with saturated fat increase inflammation in you to foster heart disease, stroke, memory loss, impotence, wrinkles, even kidney disease. So that's the reason you avoid those foods with saturated fat, but it's only 4. Everything else is a food that loves your body back and you can love. So find foods you love to eat. Food is a relationship, just like a marriage. You wouldn't be married to someone if they didn't love you back. You shouldn't have food if it doesn't love you back. So you might like French fries, but they kill you. That's not a loving relationship back. On the other hand, a sweet potato that's cooled and that you have for breakfast, that becomes resistant starch and it loves your body back.
That is such a great way of looking at it. But I have to ask, as someone who, I really do love French fries now and again, is there room for any of that? Or are you saying none of that has a place in your life?
No, there's room for getting the same taste without the sadness of it trying to kill you. So in French fries, you can do baked fries. You can put asparagus on one of the great things I didn't know, cutting up asparagus and into 2-inch long slices and putting a little olive oil and your favorite seasoning, putting it on a baking sheet. This is asparagus, not even a potato. Putting it on a baking sheet and then baking it for whatever it takes to get it crisp. It's usually about 20 minutes on one side, and then you rotate it in 20 minutes on the other. It's something around 325 degrees, but it varies by oven. When you do that, it'll taste just like French fries. Or take sweet potato fries, or even French fries that you cut out of a potato, but make them, bake them the same way, and then they're good for you. They're healthy for you, and that's what you want.
So how does one choose the best time of day to eat in order to impact your health and energy level?
Well, the best time of day is when Mr. Sun is out. So our circadian rhythm governs our sleep. So you want to sleep while the sun is away. But it sets it, that blue wavelength sets your sets your circadian rhythm based on a very small area inside your brain, just 20,000 neurons out of roughly 400 billion neurons or whatever. But it is a very few neurons see the light, if you will, and set the circadian rhythm. So you sleep by releasing hormones. Well, they do the same thing with food so that you become insulin resistant as the day goes on. So the best time to eat is sometime in the morning, meaning 10 a.m. or so. And the worst time to eat is after the sun has set. And the reason is you become that insulin resistant through the day, which means that calories in the morning you use very efficiently. As I said, 1 calorie in the test tube is only 0.9 calories in your body in the morning. Whereas in the evening, you end up by being insulin resistant, the glucose stays in your blood and you store it as fat, abdominal fat. So the worst time to eat is the later you do towards midnight or 2 a.m. actually. It becomes almost pure fat storage when you do it then because you're so insulin resistant.
So I think that it's probably pretty easy for our listeners to wrap their heads around how, the timing of the meal might affect our waistline and our energy. I think that you've made that really nice and clear. But I understand that you've also found focusing on when we eat to be beneficial to our sex lives. So I would love for you to elaborate on that a little bit, please.
Well, what you eat and when you eat is important for example, your libido and every other one of your biologic functions. So in the book, we have the first fourth of the book is really on the data about when you should eat and the science of it. We're science nerds, but we write it what we hope in the book, What to Eat When. We've written it in a way that's really fun to read. The second quarter of the book is really on how you switch to do that on a 31-day plan. And then the rest of the book is, as you say, is things for like what to eat when you're on vacation or what to eat to increase libido or what to eat for when you're at the stadium or wherever you want to be. So that's and so there are little different things for women and for men in increasing libido or taking care of hot flashes. But for example, for men, to increase their testosterone, which correlates with libido, it's fruit is best, salmon is great, cabbage sprinkled with pumpkin seeds. The data are that foods with zinc, foods with flavonoids, even dark chocolate in a little bit, and foods with omega-3 increase testosterone. For women, to increase fertility, in fact, walnuts and omega-3s, walnuts and salmon and ocean trout, flaxseed, canola oil, avocados are good, as well as zinc, selenium, and folic acid, which are, if you will, in tomatoes, and extra virgin olive oil. And the things you want to cut from the team are those things that cause inflammation in you. We've gone through it. Simple sugars, processed red meat, those are things. So we have a sub shop at the end of each chapter, which is what you want to sub out. So for example, on fertility, you want to sub out chips and you want to sub in pumpkin seeds. You want to sub out corn and you want to sub in lentils. You want to sub out milk and you want to sub in water. You want to sub out cookies and you want to have blueberries and pomegranates, which both have high levels of quercetin. So that's how the book is organized, as well as some of the things for fertility and libido.
What about when you're going through an anxious time, when you're going through a stressful time, when you can almost plan on going through a stressful time? Say you're selling your house or someone is sick in your family. What would you do then? Are there sort of swaps you would make or times you would eat? Would that change?
Yeah, no, by the way, I wanted to add one more thing. The thing that people feel when they go on this, both in the groups we've tested in my own patients, has been the three surprises are: one is they sleep much better. When they eat less at night, it is not a little bit of better sleep, but a logarithm of better sleep. The second thing is they don't feel hungry at night. And the third thing is, and this, we were skeptics when we read the science, both Dr. Krupain and myself. He's the co-author. Dr. Krupain and myself were skeptics, so we tried this, and the incredible thing is you feel much more energy. I felt the energy of someone 20 years younger. The anxiousness is what you want to do is have something crunchy. So many people would take cut up vegetables. That's pretty hard to prepare in advance. But what you can prepare in advance and put in a jar and take with you in your purse, or take with you, if you're a guy, you can put it on your desk or in your car, is roasted chickpeas. Really easy to make. You take a couple cans of chickpeas, you empty them out, drain them, wash them, and you put them in a little pot with some olive oil and your favorite seasonings. Mine are curcumin, rosemary, and garlic. Rub them around or turn them around in that bowl. Then you put them on a baking sheet, 400 degrees for about 40 minutes. Turn them once in that time, and you've got these great, and it varies a little by oven, whether your oven runs hot or cold, but you do that, and all of a sudden it tastes just absolutely crunchy and delicious, and you can take them with you. So it's a great thing for relieving stress or anxiety. Avoid doing more than anything, by the way, I didn't tell you, you asked me that, I forgot to say, is you want to avoid going through the fast food restaurant at that time, or the drive-through lane, which is a common thing that people do when they get anxious. So avoid that by having these prepared in advance. So crunchy vegetables or roasted chickpeas, which are my favorite.
So you've offered some really good tips for including really good for you foods in a way that makes them taste a little bit more like a treat. So I wonder if you could offer if you have any other recipes that you'd like to share for kind of underutilized, under the radar foods that we might want to get more of into our diets.
Well, I told you my favorite, and I hate to say this, is salmon burgers. So I have no relationship with Costco, no financial relationship, no stock, etc. But Costco has the overage of the Alaska salmon run, both in its fillets and burgers. The burgers I just fry at night, and I have often, so I brought two to work today to have as my lunch. In addition, but my favorite of all recipes is a salmon fillet that's mustard crusted with some walnuts. So I take a 1 ounce pack of walnuts, I literally pound them on the table, just slam them on the table and crunch them to get them real small. And then, so they're really small bits. I take one of those salmon fillets that I've defrosted since this morning, since last morning I did it, and I cooked it last night. But in the refrigerator, I put a little mustard, and you can put your favorite kind of mustard. I actually put a yellow mustard because it's made with turmeric rather than real mustard seed. So it actually, one of those packs has the exact right dose. It's the only reason to go to McDonald's is to grab those mustard packs when you're having coffee. And the mustard packs are great. They're 17 milligrams of turmeric per pack. You put 2 on a little 4 ounce fillet, and then you put on top of it walnuts, that walnut pack you think, put it in an oven with the skin still on it. Put a little tinfoil over it if you want, but I don't. So you do it depending on how your oven is, but it doesn't take very long to bake it or roast it. And then you get a spatula and separate the skin and it from the pan, and you got a great piece of salmon, and I love that for a breakfast. So I don't know if that fits my favorite uncovered food.
Oh yeah.
The other one is I will take. This is using walnuts again, but I take these 22 calorie discs that are sold as, I think they're sold Finess, FINNESS, like that. But they're 22 calorie chocolate discs. I melt them in a little pan. It doesn't take very long, and 2 or 3 of them, and then I drip them over some walnuts, and that's a great late afternoon snack, 30 minutes before I'm going to have salad for dinner, which is what I normally have for dinner, is with salad with balsamic and extra virgin olive oil dressing. So those are just my favorite things to have, and I can go into more, but those are my favorites.
So can you share any stories of patients who changed their lives for the better by changing how and when they ate?
Yeah, so when we were, this is a crazy one of my favorites, because as we were writing the book, we not only had a lot of subjects, for example, for the Dr. Oz show, we had subjects, but one of my favorite was actually the book editor. So the book editor had told us that we hadn't seen her. She was just the editor chosen. She was 168 pounds, and she said my real weight should be 128. I'm 5'3" or 5'4", I can't remember. And so she went on this, and literally as she was reading the chapters and editing them, she went on it. This is in mid-2017, and lost 40 pounds over a 3-month period and has kept it off. So she said, this is the best book I've ever edited. Even if it isn't great for anyone else, it was great for me. That's actually my favorite story. So I don't know if you, she lets me tell her name. So it's Lisa from, I don't know if you worked at National Geo, but if you know Lisa, that's the person who did it.
I used to work for Fitness Magazine. I was their PR person, and the best part of the job was they always try out recipes and workouts and stuff like that on me, and it was just the best learning ever. So I'm very happy for Lisa.
We've had a bunch of the people on the Oz show, actually, they had the same reaction that the other subjects and the patients have, is they find they have much more energy and all of a sudden start sleeping better. So those are the two things that I think are the biggest surprises for people, and we're in fact the biggest surprises for Dr. Krupane and myself.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because my next question was actually going to be the fact that a lot of our listeners are not necessarily looking for weight loss, but I mean, I think we can all we would like to sleep better. We would like to have more energy. We would like to just feel better. So I think that's a really strong, Lisa's story is great as well, of course. But yeah, I think that's super. I have one thing that keeps on popping into my head. And, as you're talking about this, you're sharing your breakfast, and honestly, it sounds delicious. It sounds really doable, except for the fact that, a lot of our social happens at night after dark with friends. And as we know, food tends to be social. So what tips could you offer for navigating that if we're really, trying to make some changes and we like the idea of this, but we don't want to lose out on our social lives?
Well, as long as your social life isn't every night, but it's a couple nights a week, then you can do it. But the easy way of doing it is, for example, if you're invited out, you say to the person, I'm mainly into eating vegetables and salad. Is that okay? I've never had that not be okay when a friend invites you out. And if you go to a restaurant, they always have these sides and you can modify it. So last night I ate at one of the restaurants in Cleveland, and what I had was, they had sweet potato fries as well as broiled broccoli with garlic, and they had one more. I'll think of what it was in a few seconds. But anyway, so the sweet potato fries, I said, are those fried? And they said yes. And I said, would you mind making them, if you would, with the sweet potatoes you've also got, but make them and bake them. And they said, sure, we'll do that. It'll take 15 minutes more. But they did it, and I didn't mind the 15 minutes more because that was 15 minutes more socialization. And then they had a Greek salad that I had without feta, and the broccoli, which was already just with garlic, and you say do it with olive oil and not with anything else. But you can always get. I'm trying to. Oh, the other one was cauliflower, roasted cauliflower. So you can always have those 3 veggies and some salad, and that way you really are getting 75% of your calories before 2 p.m. and you're still socializing, still had a glass of wine, still had a chocolate disc for dessert, but all, if you will, all in all, was a very low calorie and high socialization meal. The other part of the socialization actually was the person I was eating with wanted to learn how to do the eat the Wen way, as we call it. So you can go to wenway.com to find more recipes. We got a ton of recipes there, as well as more stuff about the book. But the person I was eating with wanted to learn the Wen way too. So the socialization was partially showing them how you order when you go out to eat, when the restaurant doesn't normally have that type of food there, but is more than willing to prepare it for you.
It's a little tough, though, sometimes when you have friends or family members who are foodies and really like to make, like, I have friends that like to make multiple course meals, and they start a little bit later. Do you have any advice about that?
One day of badness isn't going to ruin you. So
Okay.
one day of like unhealthy eating doesn't ruin you. We in fact say you should have 4 cheat days a year, which I have as an anniversary day, a birthday, Thanksgiving, and usually one other holiday. But 4 cheat days is no problem. But even 2 a week, it doesn't ruin this at all. So just go back to it afterwards. It's a little bit of a problem for a few days is no big deal. And in fact, that's we have 10 commandments in the end, and it says mistakes shouldn't derail you is number 6. Don't worry if you eat a big dinner or stop eating the Wen way for a day or 2. Just pick things back up tomorrow. And it really does work.
Good advice.
Absolutely. So I understand that mindfulness also plays a significant role in the Wen way. So could you offer a few of your mindful eating tips?
Well, the key on being mindful is think about what you're eating. So you don't have to eat if you order the extra large, for example, immediately separate it so you take half home, and you don't have to eat right out of the bag. One of the things is to always put it on a plate so you eat mindfully. And it isn't, Dr. Oz says it best, and I don't know if I'm quoting him exactly, but he says that it isn't the first or second bite that kills you, it's the 121st bite. It isn't the first cookie that does you in. It's the whole rest of the bag over in the corner looking mournful. So it's okay to give in once in a while, but don't, if someone says take it home as a leftover, make sure you throw it out on the way home, because most of if you're taking the whole pie home as a leftover, no one will know you did it. They were happy you took it home, and that you threw it out makes your body happier and keeps you healthier, which is really so that you'll be around to share other events with them.
How long were you working on this book? How long did it take you to create this?
I'll give you 2 stories. This took 2 years, but I'm a science nerd, so we gather the research as we're going along, and helping people at the Cleveland Clinic, where I have a day job, to get healthier as well. But it took 2 years, but that's mostly evening and weekend writing. It's all evening and weekend writing. But the other, you should know, when I was writing books with Dr. Oz as my book writing partner, we wrote 10 in 10 years. So he's a pretty good slave driver of 1 a year, boom, 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 makes you hone the message. And he and I worked together literally 40 hours a week in the evenings and weekends for 10 years to get those 10 done. Because there was so much information we wanted people to understand about their health. This I was the lead author on and wasn't as much of a slave driver in getting it done.
I feel like I need somebody to keep me in line like that. That sounds difficult, but also like it would solve a lot of my problems. You had mentioned I think you said the study in Spain where there was a 25% difference in weight loss with people who ate, what was it, before 2 o'clock or after 3 o'clock? And that sounds like that was one of those statistics that really, really took you by surprise. And I'm wondering, with all of the research,
you never think they ate the same number of calories.
Yeah.
So we grew up in medical school thinking a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. And it is in the test tube. But in your body, it doesn't function that way. And that's why this is really the eating the Wen way, as we call it, this, what we've got described in the book, is in fact a way of hacking your metabolism, as I said, to maximize your health, weight loss, and it's a total surprise. In other words, if you looked at it, and as I said, we were real cynics that this would actually work. Started it about 3.5 years ago now.
Were there any other statistics or any other studies that you found that?
There were a whole bunch. One of the other most interesting ones is because you don't believe people can live this way. The Brigham and Women's, they put people for 20 weeks in a set of rooms where they couldn't see the outside world. They had no light cues. They were fed exact food, and they shifted their circadian rhythms. They were allowed to watch Netflix or some other things like that, but without time on the computers and on the screens. And you say for 20 weeks they lived like this? And how could people live like that? But they did. And what they showed was no matter what time they switched them to, you should be eating early in your awake period. So if you're a night shift worker, you want to eat 75% of your calories 8 or more hours before you go to bed to maximize your health. As you know, night shift workers have a lot of problems with diabetes, obesity, early heart disease, even increased incidences of cancer and dementia. And this is probably why, because they eat food mainly late in their period and much worse quality and amounts of food than those of us who do daytime eating because of the shift to night shift. So that was perhaps one of the most interesting studies. Another one I'll tell you is my favorite of the animal studies. There are a lot of animal studies now over about 10 years, but my favorite is in the Drosophila or fruit fly. The fruit fly has a cardiovascular system that's closest to humans of all the animals I believe we know of, all the, including many of the mammals. And when you let the fruit flies eat round the clock like we do now because of fast food restaurants and certain restaurants advertising eat the fourth meal, etc., they develop heart failure about in their early middle age, about what humans would be at 40. And not only do they develop heart failure, but they develop diabetes and all the other signs, and they can't fly as well, etc. When you then shift them back to what we call time-restricted eating, where they only get food for 10 hours like we advocate in the book, and they eat most of it early in their awake period, you reverse the heart failure, you reverse the cardiac disease and the diabetes, and they're able to fly normally. So that was one of the most interesting studies that was, I think, from UC San Diego. So the studies are from around the world now, but that's got to be my favorite animal studies.
So, Kristen, do you have anything else you wanted to ask Dr. Roizen?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you so much. This is so much great information. Can we please ask you to give us your social media call outs and name the book again, please, and where they can get it?
Yeah, the best way is you can get it any place. It's at Amazon, Costco, BJ's, Barnes & Noble, Sam's Club, etc. And I hope it's at your local bookstore, which is where I would tell you is my favorite place to go. The book is What to Eat When. The website is whenway.com. The Instagram is when.way. And if you want to follow me, I'm at Dr. Mike Roizen. And we put out a whole bunch of recipes as well as answer questions. You can ask us questions at questions@whenway.com.
That's great. And can you answer one more question for us, please? We ask this of everybody who appears on the show.
Absolutely. This is so much fun. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So we just had the one more question we ask it of everybody who appears on the show. I hope you enjoy this question. And it is, what was the last song you listened to before you did this podcast interview?
It had to, believe it or not, I play Frankie Valli on the way to work often.
Oh.
And so the last one I listened to was in my car on the way to work, and it was Oh, What a Night.
That's one of my favorite songs by him.
A great artist.
Yeah. Did you ever see Jersey Boys on Broadway?
I saw it 7 times, so I saw it once on Broadway, but I saw it twice in Cleveland, once in Toronto, once in Las Vegas, I think even once in Atlanta. So I've seen it a lot of places. Oh, and once in Palm Springs or near Palm Springs. So I've seen it a lot of times.
I've only seen it once, but it was fantastic. It's one of my favorite shows. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. The only movie or show I watched more than that, I should tell you, is The Magnificent Seven. I don't know if you've ever seen The Magnificent Seven, the movie, the original movie. That's the only one I watch more. Thank you.
Thank you. Love this show? Tell us why in a 5-star review on iTunes, and we'll read it on the air. Also, make sure you are a subscriber. If you want to reach out to say hi or have a question about a recent episode, yay, well, feel free to email us at podcast@fitbottomgirls.com. And if this podcast jives perfectly with your brand, consider sponsoring the show. Get more info by emailing advertising@fitbottomgirls.com. Find all kinds of Fit Bottom goodness online and on social media at Fit Bottom Girls, Fit Bottom Mamas, Fit Bottom Eats, and Fit Bottom Zen. And if books and movies are your thing, check out the other podcast I co-host called Book versus Movie, which you can find anywhere where you search for podcasts. Thanks for listening.